Good day, my fellow treasure hunters. My name is Rick Miller. I'm the founder of Kids at Hope, but I'm also a professor at Arizona State University, where we study hope. As a matter of fact, we've launched the new Center for the Advanced Study and Practice of Hope. So let me give you a little perspective on where Kids at Hope came from and where we are and where we hope to be, and why it's important that your school supports that, believes in it, models that with us. Beginning in 1993, I led a group of practitioners and researchers to challenge what we then knew as the youth at risk paradigm. You know that paradigm where you believe some kids will do very well, some kids will struggle and probably make it eventually, and some kids will fall through the cracks. We thought that expression, youth at risk, was overused, misused, abused, and maligned. We thought it was too easy of an excuse as to determine why some kids do well and other kids struggle. So for the next 7 years, we reviewed the existing literature, whether it came from medicine or psychology, sociology, social work, education, recreation, or criminology. We were looking at a wide range of human service research to better understand what it was trying to tell us as to why some kids do well and other kids struggle. Now, all of us have our own theories, don't we? We have an idea why some kids do better than other kids. Some of us may believe it's poverty. If you're born into abject poverty, you're going to do worse than if you're not. If you're from a highly mobile family that just seems to move because of maybe financial challenges in their life, you may not do better as a family that's much more stable. If you come from a family where mom and dad may not even had a high school education, you may not do as well as a family that their parents graduated from college. And although all of those have some value to it, we found something much more deeper and much more meaningful to those simple expressions as to why some children do well and other kids struggle. And it's those 4 major conclusions that we believe is truly revolutionizing our understanding of child and youth development. And let me share those 4 major research conclusions. The first one was, it's not the risk in children's lives that prevent them from succeeding, it's the absence of hope. For too long, we've been looking at risk factors when we should be committed to understanding hope factors. We've been using the risk of poverty and poor education, maybe a lack of motivation, highly mobile, dysfunctional families, alcoholism, drugs, all consequential issues. But we found time and time again, not only in the research, but in case studies of kids who lived under those conditions, who succeeded even in the face of that adversity. We wanted to know more about the immunity than we wanted to know about the disease. And in understanding that, we began to understand that it wasn't risk that prevented kids from success, it was the absence of hope. The second finding was, we don't control most of the risk that children experience, but we do control much of the hope. Now keep in mind, we've been talking a lot about risk for a very long time. As a matter of fact, I've been studying it since the 1960s. So I've been becoming a pretty good expert around risk. It's been only in the last 27 years that I really began to understand the immunity of hope. And that's why I'm so committed to understanding this important dynamic that we now reference as hope. So we've been focused on trying to eliminate, mitigate, or prevent risk, when in fact we should be focused on how do we advance hope in children's lives as the immunity to risk. The third finding is that hope is taught and learned. You teach hope like you teach reading, writing, math, and science. What fork to use, what shoe goes on the left foot, what shoe goes on the right foot. We teach hope like we teach all of the other skills in life. We also understand if hope is taught and learned, then can you teach something that you don't know? If you don't know math, can you teach math? If you don't know science, can you teach science? If you yourself are not a hopeful person, how do you teach a child about hope? How do you teach them about the strategies of hope? How do you teach them about the pathways associated with hope? And how do you teach them about the energy required to become a hopeful person, not to give up on their dreams, to have options in their life? How do you teach something you don't know? So that third finding is quite profound. Hope is taught and learned. And the fourth finding is curriculum or programs don't make the biggest difference in children's lives. Adult relationships do. Now keep in mind, again, we've been focused on trying to find the silver bullet, the right curriculum, the right program. If we just had this curriculum, or if we just put this child in the 6-week program or a 6-month program, something magically should happen. And in fact, it wasn't the program nor the curriculum. It was the adult relationships that took place in that program or the delivery of that curriculum. So instead of looking for the silver bullet that's in a program or curriculum, we become the silver bullet. Instead of looking for the right program, we begin to look for the right relationships. So those 4 research conclusions: it's not risk that holds kids back from success, it's the absence of hope. We don't control most of the risks in children's lives, but we do control much of the hope. Hope is taught and learned, and it's not curriculum or programs that make the biggest difference in children's lives, it's adult relationships. Those 4 major research conclusions are revolutionizing our understanding of child and youth development and the education associated with it. And in later videos, I'll talk about what we actually do now that we understand those 4 conclusions. Thank you.